In the heart of the American Southwest, where Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Texas meet, the Apache runners carved their legend as some of history's greatest long-distance athletes. Born in the rugged expanse of Apacheria, a 100,000 square mile territory of deserts, canyons, and towering mountains, they moved with a speed and stealth that outmatched even the fastest cavalry horses, Spanish lancers, Mexican dragoons, and the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry, chasing them during the Apache Wars from 1849 to 1886, quickly learned that no horse could keep up in this unforgiving land. The Apache homeland, with its steep Chiricahua Mountains and sprawling Gila wilderness, was a maze of rocky trails and jagged cliffs. Horses faltered here, needing up to 10 gallons of water a day in the blistering desert heat. A single slip on loose stones could break a horse's leg, and in the 1800s, that meant the end for the animal. Military records from the era, like those of U.S. Army officer John C. Cremoni in his 1868 book Life Among the Apaches, described cavalry units struggling to pursue Apache warriors who seemed to vanish into the terrain. The Apache, however, were at home in these mountains. They knew every hidden path, every twist of the canyon, as if the land itself guided their steps. A Chiricahua Apache runner could cover 50 to 75 miles in a single day, leaving footprints so faint they barely marked the earth. This wasn't just raw speed. It was a mastery of movement, honed by a lifetime in the Southwest's harshest landscapes. Cremoni noted how Apache warriors could cross vast distances without a trace, baffling trackers sent to hunt them. Their success relied on more than skill alone. Scattered across the mountains, the Apache maintained hidden caches, carefully stashed in caves and crevices. These weren't haphazard piles, but strategic reserves of food, water, arrows, and, by the mid-1800s, rifles and ammunition. During the resistance led by Mangus Coloradas in the 1850s, these caches allowed Apache bands to strike, retreat, and evade capture for months. Like a network of ancient supply posts, these reserves kept them one step ahead of their enemies. The Apache runners were more than athletes. Their speed, silence, and cunning were the lifeblood of their people's survival, making them legends in Native American history and beyond. When someone claims a horse can't be outrun, the Apache proved them wrong, their legacy etched in the mountains they called home. To keep their legendary runners moving across the rugged Southwest, the Apache turned to the land's own bounty, crafting a diet that powered their endurance and survival. In the harsh deserts and mountains of Apacheria, they relied on foods like dried venison, pinyon nuts, and roasted mesquite pods, each chosen for its ability to sustain them through grueling treks. These weren't just meals. They were the backbone of a strategy that kept Apache warriors one step ahead of their enemies. Dried venison, often made from deer hunted in the Chiricahua Mountains, was a staple. A single pound of this protein-packed meat could provide enough energy for a runner to cover 50 miles, delivering about 600 calories and lasting for months without spoiling. Pinyon nuts, harvested from the pinyon pine trees dotting the Southwest, were another key food. These small, nutrient-dense nuts, rich in fiber and healthy fats, offered about 190 calories per ounce and had a low glycemic index, providing steady energy without blood sugar spikes. Historical records from the 19th century, including accounts from U.S. Army officers like John G. Bork, note the Apache's reliance on pinyon nuts during long campaigns, often carrying them in small leather pouches. Then there was mesquite, a thorny desert plant that many outsiders might overlook. The Apache harvested its pods, roasting and grinding them into a fine powder. This mesquite flour, sweet and slightly nutty, was loaded with electrolytes like magnesium and potassium, critical for runners sweating under the desert sun. A single cup of mesquite flour could yield 400 calories and store for years, making it a perfect trail food. Ethnographic studies, such as those by anthropologist Grenville Goodwin in the 1930s, confirmed that mesquite was a vital resource for the Apache, often mixed with water to form a quick, energizing paste. These foods weren't just chosen for their nutrition, they were built to last. Unlike fresh provisions that spoiled quickly, dried venison, pinyon nuts, and mesquite flour could be stashed for seasons, hidden in caves across the mountains. During the Apache resistance in the 1850s and 1860s, led by figures like Cochise, these caches were lifelines. Alongside food, the Apache stored water, arrows, and later, rifles and ammunition, creating a network of supply points that rivaled modern ultramarathon aid stations. A single cache, as described in military reports from Fort Bowie in Arizona, might contain enough provisions to sustain a small band for weeks, allowing them to strike, retreat, and vanish into the wilderness. This system of food and supply caches gave the Apache unmatched mobility. While Spanish, Mexican, and American forces struggled with heavy wagons and limited water, the Apache moved light and fast, their carefully planned reserves ensuring they were never far from fuel. It was a brilliant blend of nature's gifts and strategic foresight, keeping their runners and warriors ready for the fight. The Apache weren't just born fast. They built their legendary running skills through a lifetime of disciplined training, starting as young as 7 years old. In the mountains and deserts of Apacheria, from the pine-covered slopes of the Chiricahua Mountains to the sandy washes of the Gila River, they honed techniques that turned them into masters of endurance and stealth. These methods, passed down through generations, didn't just create runners. They forged warriors who could outmaneuver Spanish, Mexican, and American forces during the Apache Wars from 1849 to 1886. One cornerstone of their training was a practice known as breath control, often called Apache Breathwork. Young Apache children would fill their mouths with water, then run up steep mountain trails, like those in the Pinaleno Mountains, and back down without swallowing or spitting. This forced them to breathe through their noses, building lung capacity and mental focus. Ethnographic accounts from the 1930s by anthropologist Morris Opler describe this method among the Chiricahua Apache, noting that runners could maintain steady breathing over distances of 20 to 30 miles. The urge to swallow grew stronger with every step, teaching discipline under pressure, a skill as vital in battle as it was on the trail. Another key method was running through natural obstacle courses. The Apache didn't train on flat paths. They chose rugged routes across their homeland, leaping over fallen pine logs, splashing through shallow creeks, and scrambling over boulders in places like the Mogollon Rim. These trails, often stretching 5 to 10 miles, challenged not just their lungs, but their calves, ankles, and even upper body strength as they vaulted obstacles. Historical records from Fort Apache, established in Arizona in 1870, mention Apache scouts navigating such terrain with ease, covering ground that slowed cavalry horses to a crawl. The Southwest's landscape, often mistaken as just rocky desert, also boasts forested mountains with ponderosa pines, where Apache runners trained to hunt, hide, and fight. Then there were the chasing games, a blend of play and preparation. As young children, Apache kids played tag and hide and seek, darting through mesquite thickets or crouching behind rocks to avoid being spotted. These games, documented by anthropologist Grenville Goodwin in his 1942 study of the Western Apache, taught stealth and quick reflexes. By their teenage years, the games grew tougher. Teens played a version of dodgeball with rocks, hurling small stones at each other in mock battles. A missed dodge or a clumsy move meant a painful hit, sharpening their awareness and agility. Goodwin noted that these games mimicked the tactics of guerrilla warfare, training young Apache to move silently and react instantly. Together, These methods, breathwork, obstacle runs, and chasing games built runners who could cover 50 to 75 miles in a day, as recorded by U.S. Army officers like John G. Bork in the 1870s. But their training did more than that. It prepared them for the hit-and-run tactics of guerrilla warfare, allowing small Apache bands, often outnumbered, to outwit larger, better-armed forces. Leaders like Mangus, Coloradas, and Cochise relied on these skills to evade capture, striking from the shadows and vanishing into the mountains. The Apaches' training wasn't just about speed. It was about survival, resistance, and the strength of a people who ran to protect their way of life. In the annals of Apache history, few stories shine as brightly as that of Geronimo, the Chiricahua warrior whose name became synonymous with resistance. In 1885, at the age of 66, Geronimo pulled off a feat that stunned the U.S. Army. He escaped from the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona, running over 90 miles on foot to evade capture. This wasn't just a tale whispered around campfires. It was a documented event that underscored the extraordinary endurance of Apache runners and their unyielding spirit. The escape came during a tense period of the Apache Wars, when the U.S. Army was tightening its grip on Apache bands confined to reservations. Geronimo, leading a small group of followers, broke free from San Carlos, a place rife with disease and hardship. Military reports from Fort Apache, cited in Edwin Sweeney's Cochise to Geronimo, 2010, confirm that U.S. troops, including the 4th Cavalry, tracked Geronimo's group for over 90 miles through the rugged terrain of southeastern Arizona. The soldiers followed faint trails across rocky canyons and mesquite-dotted plains, only to lose the Apache in the Dragoon Mountains. There, Geronimo and his band secured horses, likely from local ranches, and continued their flight. This grueling run, covering roughly the distance from San Carlos to the modern town of Douglas, Arizona, was no myth. It was a pivotal moment that allowed Geronimo to continue his resistance until his final surrender in 1886. What makes this feat even more remarkable? Geronimo did it with next to nothing. He carried minimal food, perhaps a small pouch of dried venison or pinyon nut sand relied on cached water supplies hidden in the mountains. His feet, toughened by decades in Apacheria, were protected not by modern shoes but by deerskin moccasins. These lightweight shoes, crafted from the hides of deer hunted in the Gila wilderness, were the Apache's answer to the Southwest's punishing terrain. The rocky ground, studded with cacti and sharp stones, made barefoot running risky, even for seasoned runners. Some Apache, as noted by anthropologist Morris Opler in his 1941 study of the Chiricahua, used specialized moccasins with soles made from 2 layers of bison hide, specifically from the tough neck area. These bison hide soles, thicker and more durable than deerskin, could withstand miles of jagged trails, offering protection akin to the running shoes of today. Geronimo's run was more than a physical triumph. It was a symbol of Apache resilience, proving that even in their later years, their warriors could outpace younger soldiers and defy the odds. The 90-mile escape, fueled by skill and sheer will, ensured Geronimo's legend would echo through history, a testament to the strength of a people who ran not just to survive, but to fight for their freedom. In the rugged heart of Apacheria, the Apache proved they were more than runners. They were among history's finest guerrilla fighters. Their unmatched speed, deep knowledge of the Southwest canyons and peaks, and stealthy tactics made them a formidable force against Spanish, Mexican, and American armies during the Apache Wars from 1849 to 1886. Leaders like Cochise and Mangus Coloradas led small bands that struck swiftly, vanishing into places like the Chiricahua Mountains before enemies could respond. Military reports from Fort Bowie in the 1860s estimate that Apache bands, often fewer than 50 warriors, could evade forces 10 times their size, thanks to their ability to cover 50 to 75 miles a day on foot. This reliance on running wasn't unique to the Apache. Across the Southwest, Native American tribes honed their endurance because, before European contact in the 1500s, they had no horses or wheels. Food, supplies, and messages traveled by foot, carried by elite runners across vast distances. In the Apache lands and beyond, these runners were the lifeline of their people, navigating scorching deserts and rugged mountains with minimal provisions. A striking example of this tradition lies just north of Apacheria, in the Pueblo Revolt of 1680 in present-day New Mexico. By the late 1600s, the Spanish had ruled the region for over a century. Since their arrival in 1598, they enforced brutal policies, burning sacred kivas, banning traditional ceremonies, and punishing Pueblo people with whippings and executions. Spanish governors like Juan Francisco Trevino in 1675 even arrested 47 Pueblo religious leaders, executing 4 and enslaving others, sparking outrage. By 1680, the Pueblo community's independent village clusters like Taos, San Ildefonso, and Ziahad had enough. Led by a Tewa spiritual leader named Pope from San Juan Pueblo, the Pueblos orchestrated a daring revolt. In secret meetings at Taos Pueblo, Pope and other leaders planned a coordinated uprising across 400 miles of territory, uniting over 20 Pueblo villages. To synchronize their attack, they sent runners carrying knotted cords, each knot representing a day. These messengers, covering up to 60 miles daily, delivered the cords to distant villages like Acoma and Zuni, with instructions to untie one knot each day. When the final knot was undone on the 10th of August, 1680, the Pueblos launched their revolt, striking Spanish settlements in a single, devastating blow. The revolt's success was stunning. Over 400 Spanish settlers and 21 Franciscan priests were killed, and the survivors fled 300 miles south to El Paso, as recorded in Spanish chronicles by Governor Antonio de Oterman. The Pueblos reclaimed their lands, preserving sacred traditions like the Cachina dances. When the Spanish returned in 1692 under Diego de Vargas, they never regained their former dominance. The Pueblo Revolt, powered by the speed and secrecy of native runners, ensured that the Southwest, unlike much of the United States, retained a vibrant native culture, with 19 Pueblo communities thriving in New Mexico today. The Apache and Pueblo stories show how running was more than survival. It was resistance, a way to protect their people and their way of life against overwhelming odds. Their legacy lives in the trails they blazed, etched into the Southwest's mountains and mesas. The story of the Apache and their Southwest kin, like the Pueblo, comes down to one truth. Their elite running skills were the heartbeat of their survival. In the vast Apacheria, spanning Arizona, New Mexico, and beyond, their ability to race across deserts and mountains fueled not just daily life, but also their fierce guerrilla warfare. From the Chiricahua warriors outpacing U.S. cavalry in the 1880s to the Pueblo runners coordinating the 1680 revolt, these native athletes turned speed into resistance, preserving their culture against overwhelming odds. Today, roughly 30% of the Southwest population traces native ancestry, a testament to the enduring strength of these communities, as noted in the 2020 U.S. Census. You can tap into this legacy by trying a key Apache training technique, breath control, known as Apache Breathwork. This practice, rooted in the traditions of the Chiricahua and Western Apache, builds endurance and focus. Start simple. Take a small sip of water, hold it in your mouth, and go for a short runabout, a flat trail. Breathe only through your nose, keeping the water in place without swallowing or spitting. The effort forces calm, steady breathing, much like Apache runners maintained while scaling peaks like the Pinaleno Mountains. Ethnographic records from anthropologist Morris Opler in 1941 describe how young Apache trained this way, running 3 to 5 miles daily to master their breath over time. As you get comfortable, step it up. Try a hilly path, like a 2-mile loop with a 500-foot climb, aiming to keep your pace even. The challenge of holding the water sharpens your mental discipline, a skill Apache warriors use to stay composed during long pursuits. Studies on nasal breathing, such as a 2018 report in the Journal of Sports Medicine, show it can boost oxygen efficiency by up to 20%, mirroring the edge Apache runners gained. With practice, you'll notice your breathing steadies and your mind stays clear, even when your legs burn. This breathwork is more than a workout. It's a connection to the Apache spirit, a way to honor the runners who carried their people's hopes across the Southwest mesas and canyons. Start small, stay patient, and let the trail teach you the strength of those who ran before.